Today in the Diz List, we count down the top 5 moderate and value resorts at Walt Disney World.
Welcome to the Diz List, the podcast that lists everything at Walt Disney World. I'm Nick.
And I'm Rob, and today we count down the top 5 moderate and value resorts at Walt Disney World.
You sound grindy this week.
Yeah, well, there's a reason for that, and we won't spend too much time on this.
Okay.
Last night, my band played, but that wasn't the exciting part. It was my band played, and of a lot of our friends' bands who we become friends with over the years. Roses Are Red specifically did a little reunion and did the 20th anniversary of their Conversations album. And you came along. You helped us out like you always do. And
slinging some merch.
What was your thoughts on the show? I'm not looking for compliments for me. Tell me about what the overall.
I thought it was a pretty good lineup. I think you guys opened up for some people who hadn't played in 15 to 20 years for some of them, which was kind of cool. So you guys were a current band. I thought everybody sounded great. I thought the vibe was cool. It was a lot of people our age, which is not always the case when you go to a show. Yeah. But it was great. And our good friend,
Tom Bullman
was there from Bull Airs.
Yeah, we saw a lot of listeners, actually. Well, we got a lot of feedback from people who listen to the show on a regular basis.
Don't usually get that at the rock shows.
That's true. We saw one of our patrons.
One of our patrons, yep.
We saw Brian was there. Longtime listener Todd was there. Vinny was there. A lot of people. And then Tom Bullman. So Tom Bullman, who we've had on the show.
Yeah, he listens
interviewed on the show.
Yep.
Who does Bull Airs sneakers. He contacted me this week, and he said, he goes, "Hey, Rob, have any interest in wearing those shoes?" I go, "No." I did. I responded with no at first. And then I go, and I kind of thought about it. I go, why not?
Yeah.
Why not wear them? Because like these shoes, they're like a collector's item.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see these things. They are, if you haven't seen what Tom's shoes look like, and you haven't listened to Tom's episode, Nick, how would you describe what he does, besides the fact that he's a shoe artist? What's your best description of Tom?
So, Tom is a reformed tattoo artist.
Yep. Who was on Ink Master.
Yes. Who has done some amazing pop culture nods in his sneakers. If you're a sneakerhead,
and you don't know about him, you should.
Yeah, I would be shocked if you're a sneakerhead and don't know about him. But if you are a sneakerhead, and you do know about him, trust me, these are high quality shoes. Mm-hmm. And that's not we're not trying to sell anything. I'm just telling you, they're really cool shoes.
Do yourself a favor. Go to his Bull Air, Bullairs.
Yeah, Bull Airs.
Bull Airs. Go to his site and check out what he does. It's
not just sneakers too. He's got really cool hoodies and T-shirts too.
Mm-hmm. He does different types now. Like those Hey Dude shoes.
Yeah,
he makes that style.
Yep. He's got the short horns, which are like the low tops.
Yep.
Which I prefer. But yeah,
very cool. So he was there. His band he used to play in played that night. And a lot of our friends who were in another punk band locally, I got up on stage and was singing along at the end.
Yeah, I missed that part.
Did you see that?
No, I missed that part because I was in the back selling merch and selling albums and stuff. And so Rob's drummer comes up. He's like, "Did you just see Rob on stage?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, he just got up and sang with them." I was like, "Hold on, sang with them?" He's like, "Yeah, I got it on video. Don't worry about it." So he's gonna send it over to me. But anyway,
our other local friend who owns a lot of businesses like Pizza Wizard, who we've talked about before, our friend Jeff plays guitar in Delta Force, and I just kind of whispered in his ear. I was like, "Hey, can I jump up for this last song?" He was like, "Please do." He moved his pedal board out of the way.
That's hilarious.
Then, Travis got up from one of the other opening bands too, and we sang with them. So it was a great night.
Yeah.
And I know this isn't related to Disney, and if you're fast forwarding, I totally get it.
Yeah.
But at the very least, go and check out Tom Bullman and Bull Airs. Yeah. And
it's just a quick explanation why you sound.
Yeah.
Why
grindy.
Why we have traded spaces.
Yes.
Yeah. Because last week I was the one struggling.
And you're feeling better. You just have a cough.
Yeah, I feel fine. I have a cough that has lingered, but like I don't have like my voice I feel is back to mostly normal.
Yeah.
If it's not normal, it's because we got like 5 hours of sleep last night.
Well, like, I kind of sound like Will Arnett now. I'm ready to do the Lego Batman voiceover.
I am Batman. All right. So anyway. last week we did the top 5 deluxe resorts. And as you know, there are 3, or as you probably know, there are 3 different levels.
Yeah.
And so we have moderate and value left. Moderate and value have less options, I would say.
Yeah.
And so we felt like putting them together was a good bet.
I've stayed at or been to all of these.
Okay.
Except for one. Now that I look at my list, except for one. It's the one that you mentioned earlier before we started the show.
Yep.
That's the only one I haven't been to.
Yeah.
I've either been to them or I've stayed at them. So I feel pretty good about my list. It was a hard list to make.
Mm-hmm.
I had to move a couple around last minute.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I'm really happy. And I'm going to start right off here. And I'm going to say number 5 is the only one I haven't been to. And I may have gone here when I was really, really little. It's possible. But number 5 is going to be Fort Wilderness. So Fort Wilderness is a really interesting and very, very different,
super unique
Disney resort. It's not really like anything that they have. You can do archery. You can do horseback riding. You can literally camp in a tent if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many great I think you go fishing there. There's a couple.
I mean, you can go fishing a lot of different.
You can go fishing too. So there's a couple of different places you can do. I'm just saying that's another option of something else you can do there.
Mm-hmm.
But you were mentioning a different option earlier that I wasn't really aware of.
Yeah,
that was a little bit more deluxe.
So I would say that Fort Wilderness, of all the resorts, is the one that you can pretty much go from value all the way up to deluxe accommodations
in one place.
Because you can tent camp. I've watched a video once. Tim Tracker was running one of the 5 or 10Ks,
mm-hmm.
and he literally camped in his car. He has a Rivian, and like you can camp out in Rivians, like they lay flat beds or whatever. He camped out in his car. You can have RVs that you bring in. In fact, Halloween and Christmas time, people will book a year in advance, and families it's a tradition, and they come and they decorate their site like to the nth degree. So I feel like you've got the value in the tent type stuff. The moderate is like bringing your RV and doing that.
Yep.
And then you have the cabins.
Yeah,
which are now DVC.
Right.
Before they were definitely more along the lines of a moderate level accommodation. These new cabins are gorgeous. They're still not like luxurious like staying at the Grand Floridian, and there's not as much dining or amenities at Fort Wilderness as there is at some of those deluxe, which is why it doesn't elevate to that. But as far as accommodations go, I feel like it runs the gamut there. And it's one of the most cost-effective for larger families.
And until recently, when they started talking about the cabins, I feel like this is one of the one of the least talked about of the resorts. It it goes under the radar a lot.
There are families. So the DVC cabins have come under fire, and rightfully so. They kind of took away a previously moderate accommodation that actually cost less than an Art of Animation family suite.
Right.
And they took those away and replaced them with DVC cabins, which now cost a lot more.
Yeah.
Families who go to Fort Wilderness go to Fort Wilderness. It's that's tradition. Right. That's it. Like,
because it's been around for so long too.
Right.
It's one of the longest running of these. Maybe the longest, looking at this list.
Yeah, it's so as a result of like removing those, rightfully so, people got really angry, and to me, they're controversial to me anyway because of like the cost per point, and like from a DVC perspective, they're really controversial. But from like a Disney, like kind of messing with the core fans, I think they're equally controversial because I feel bad. Like, these are accommodations that people have been going to those cabins for generations. And I don't say that like, that's not hyperbolic for me to say. That's like legit generations of people have been getting these cabins, staying with family. It's their camping, right?
Sure.
If you're going to camp, why not have Disney parks right there? Yeah. Kind of a thing. And they have like a fireplace or a fire pit. They've got like the typical state park grill, if you know what I mean, the cast iron, like
of course,
the flip top thing. Yeah. So I love that they had those, and I like that they're now more deluxe. I don't like that they're DVC and priced a whole group of people who that was their tradition out.
Yeah.
But it still makes that resort cool enough to make it on our list.
Yes.
And the amenities there, as far as what you can do on that property, like you said, amazing.
Yeah. Where else can you do anything like that?
You know,
the horseback riding and the archery, those are always the first two things that pop up in my head.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, those are definitely amenities you don't get elsewhere. So that's a good reason why it elevates to our list. What do we have for number 4?
So number 4 on the list, I've stayed at very recently, within the last couple of years, and that is Port Orleans. So Port Orleans is divided into 2 different resorts. They're separate, but they're still all part of the same thing. But they're themed differently. They have 2 different pools. There's different restaurants. There's Riverside, where I stayed, and then there is French Quarter. It took me a second. Yeah. So French Quarter is a little bit more kind of like old school New Orleans, where it looks kind of like, mansions and wrought iron and
Spanish moss everywhere.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that it's very kind of cool.
Gingerbreading on the buildings and
very
stuff like
posh there. That's a good point. They definitely do. So on the side where we were, I wanted to stay Riverside because I looked at both of them, and I was pretty flexible, and that was kind of the one we got a good deal on. And that one, I remember sending you photos of it, saying they have like these little creeks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It looks
around.
amazing.
It's so cool, and obviously they're man-made, but it really feels like you're kind of walking, not necessarily in a swamp, because that kind of can conjure up some
low country.
Correct.
You're in the low country.
Yes. And it's very nice, and the buildings are different there, but in a really good way.
Yeah.
It's I would say it's more of a quiet resort, and I don't mean...
No, I know exactly what you mean. It's spread out enough that you...
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I think Polynesian is a quiet resort too.
Yeah,
because you're not all in one building.
Yeah.
And so because you're spread out. Now, Port Orleans is even more spread out. And so I could totally see that. Because I think every building is 3 stories?
Yes. No, I don't quote me on that. I think if I'm remembering this right, I think Riverside is 2, and I think French Quarter is 3. I may be wrong though.
Okay.
If people are yelling at their podcast machine, don't blame me.
And food wise,
that's why we wanted to stay there.
Yeah, food wise,
we love Cajun food.
Yeah,
there's a lot of gluten-free Cajun food, and I wanted to go and try everything we could. The gumbo, dirty rice, jambalaya.
Yeah.
We love all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was one of the main reasons that
is which one is Boatwright's at? That's the table service. I know you're not a table service guy. I think that's.
I will look it up.
Okay. I can't remember, but Boatwright's is over there.
We ate, and we were only there for 2 days, so that was a split stay.
Right, because that was the one you did in the end of our Polynesian stay.
Right, you headed home you had a soccer game, I think, and we stayed a little extra time, and our family came over to the resort. But the place where I remember eating, it was a food court, but it was like a giant mill.
Oh yeah, yep.
That was really cool because they had Cajun options there, and then if somebody wanted, pizza or burgers or whatever else, but it was. Most of these resorts we're going to talk about have food courts, which are great for families that, not necessarily picky eaters, but a kid wants what they want. They want their chicken nuggets or they want their burger.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest difference between deluxe and moderate, at least some of these moderates, because there's a couple on this list that have really good food options, but for the most part, I would say the biggest difference is that like a deluxe resort, you're going to have multiple high quality table service. And because of that, the quick service might suffer. Whereas the moderates and values tend to have better quick service, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Which it tracks, right? Because people are saving money there. They might be trying to save money also on your dining.
They do.
So, Now, when you stayed there, were the boats running over the springs?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't remember because I know they were shut down for a while.
Yep. And then the summer after, which was this previous summer,
Yep.
my daughter stayed there with a friend.
Okay.
And we didn't ride the boats, but she did, and she loved it. And they rode the boats right all the way over to Disney Springs, and she said it was great.
Yeah. I just wasn't sure because I know that it didn't open immediately after COVID. And so I wasn't sure when it had opened. So what I'm talking about is there's boats that run all the way over to Disney Springs. I think it's Port Orleans and Saratoga Springs are the only two
that have
those boats that go there. I can't remember.
I pulled up the dining options. This is going to answer your question from before.
Yeah.
So there's Sassagoula Floatworks and Food Factory.
Yeah, I knew that one.
By the way, this is French Quarter. Not the one we were at, but the other one. There is Scat Cats Club. That's the lounge there.
Yep.
And then there's a cafe also for you can get little food and things. There's Mardi Grogs.
Well, at the cafe, I want to point out you can get like really good beignets there. And before it was the only place to get beignets at Disney World. But now you have Tiana's. Yeah.
Until now, yeah.
And Tiana's beignets are real good.
All right, so I'm looking up Riverside here, and of course it's going to be at the end of the list.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Perfect.
No, Boatwrights is over at Riverside. I'm almost positive.
Well, here it is. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you to stall for me here.
No problem. No problem.
They didn't have the two of them next to each other on the list.
That makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah,
Port Orleans.
You'd think. Okay, so here's where I was. The Riverside Mill Food Court is where I went. Good for families, definitely. There's the River Roost, which is bar service.
Yep.
Muddy Rivers, that's another bar. And then Boatwrights. That's where you can get dinner. So that is at Riverside.
For a while, Boatwrights was like one of the worst table service on property, and then there was a chef change. I know a lot of people had talked about how it got a lot better. So it's nice to see like when they recognize there's an issue and they change. They make changes. They make the appropriate changes. So that's nice.
So let's do 3 before we go to the halftime show.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm not sure who's going to be performing at the halftime show, but we'll find out in a minute here. But number 3 is going to be one that I made a reservation for, and during COVID, that reservation obviously ended up being canceled.
Yeah.
And that is the Art of Animation.
Yeah, I have family who's stayed there quite a bit. Like they stay there. I think they've been 4 times they've stayed there, and they started out in like a regular room, and then as their kid got bigger, now they go and stay in the family suite.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest selling points for this
Absolutely.
place. And I actually had this conversation last night with some friends at the show about
as one does
of the rooms
at a rock and roll show.
Well, because they want to.
No, I know
they want to talk Disney in the podcast. You know me, I'm always down.
Oh, I was selling merch to people talking about Disney, so we're all good.
So we were talking about, and it leads into this resort here. They stayed at All Star Movies.
Okay.
All Star Movies is a value resort. It's not on my list. And we stayed at All Star Sports. I have no problem with it. I think the theming there is really good. It's very heavily Disney themed. You see a lot of, Mickey and giant Toy Story characters. But one of the things that they mentioned was you're right on top of each other. It's a tiny little room, tiny beds, not a lot of space. So it's
those family suites are huge.
Right. And that's what I was talking about is if you go to Art of Animation, the reason I would, if you're listening to this podcast and you're or you're watching on YouTube here and you're trying to figure out which one do I go to, I have young kids. They just love Disney. They love Disney theming. You're going to want to go to this resort. You're going to want to go to Art of Animation.
I can't argue with that. I don't have a desire necessarily personally to stay there, but if I'm picking a resort like for kids in the 3 to 8-year-old range,
correct,
who are addicted to watching like Disney Channel and like Disney movies all the time, I'm going to sacrifice my desire to stay at the Poly to stay here.
So I'll tell our listeners and viewers here the 4 main areas at Art of Animation. Before I do, there's a food court. The food court is decent. They have drawing lessons inside, so that's a couple good selling points for Art of Animation. But they have 4 areas. One is Cars themed. and the outside of it seems very, desert, kind of
Cozy
Radiator
cone.
Springs. There's the actual, replicas of the characters of cars all over that you can see. Next to that is, I'm kind of going from one side to the other. Next to that is Nemo, which has one of the coolest pools in all of Disney.
So remember last week you challenged me?
Yeah.
And you said, I really want to know what you're talking about.
Sure.
Art of Animation pool is the pool that I would rank as a value resort.
Yeah.
That particular pool you're talking about.
Yeah.
I would rank that above the pool at the Contemporary.
Yeah.
That's the one.
It is really, really cool.
Because you're like, oh, I got to know what this one is. Well, there you go, folks. That's it. That's the one.
They have underwater music playing.
It's
all the Nemo characters are all around the outside of the pool. They're on the side of the buildings. It's so cool. So that whole area is just fantastic. And then you walk a little ways and you get to the Lion King area.
Yep.
Which the kind of the interior area, almost kind of like the courtyard in the center, is very much, jungle themed and
Pride Lands almost. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's the different characters are all over the place. That's where you can get those family suites. I think you can also do the family suites in the next one that I'm about to talk about, and that's the Little Mermaid one.
I think so too.
And I remember a joke came out of this a long time ago because I was describing
how
tall Ursula was.
The 200-foot tall Ursula.
Yeah, that's
I don't think that's actually what you said.
No, I don't know. Anyway, but there's another kind of cute little pool there too.
Yep.
But if your kids are into Little Mermaid, the animated version, not the live action version, same with Lion King.
Yep.
It's the animated version as well. The food's okay. We didn't stay there, but I think the summer before, we did one of those trips where we decided to kind of hop around to the different resorts and eat. Honestly, we went there to go try the drawing class, and the drawing class wasn't available that day. We were bummed because it said that it was, and when we got there, whoever was doing the course wasn't available. So that's okay. Most of the time it is available for people to do, but I just think that resort is great. And last but not least, the best part about that resort and means it could move up is the Skyliner.
I was just going to say, because you said we resort hop to it, and I was going to say, and how can you hop to it?
Well, this was before the Skyliner was there.
But now anybody can. You can leave Epcot. If you really wanted to go eat at that food court, maybe they got some special thing coming out for whatever.
Yeah.
You leave Epcot, jump on the Skyliner. You leave Hollywood Studios, jump on the Skyliner. I mean,
now this resort,
Skyliner's a game changer.
This resort also has a sister resort or brother resort, whichever way you want to refer to it.
It's kind of weird.
So there's two resorts that are connected with a bridge in the center. That bridge now actually is the area where you get on and off of the Skyliner. But that other resort on the other side, I don't want this to be super negative, but I think Pop Century is my least favorite by a lot. I just think it's cheesy, and if you love it, I'm sure we have listeners that love it, and I love the Rubik's Cube, or I love the Flower Child graphics, and that's cool, and that's great. I'm happy that you like that. It's not my style. The coolest part about it is the Mickey phone. There's a giant Mickey Mouse. That's cool, but I just don't love that vibe. I'm not into it at all.
Look, I can't argue with you.
I don't love it. It's not on the list, but it's there.
Yeah.
It has the Skyliner. Cool. You can probably get a good deal on one of those rooms. I talked to somebody recently who was telling me, hey, I'm going to Disney. And I said, are you staying on property? They go, yeah, we're staying at Pop Century. I went, cool. What am I going to say? Oh, I hate that place.
Yeah. You're not going to.
But I don't hate it. It's like, you're at Disney.
Right, yeah.
If someone said, you can stay at Pop Century or you can do X other vacation, sure. My least favorite. Yeah, my least favorite resort at Disney, Pop Century. Of course I would stay there. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. I totally know what you mean.
I don't love it. So again, I apologize if you love it. There's something for everyone. This is our list, and doesn't make our list.
So Rob decided to put a little bit of the dishonorable mentions.
A little bit, well, because it was directly related.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, we got a dishonorable mention right before the halftime show, which is fine.
Yeah.
The halftime show is brought to you, as always, by our patrons. If you don't know what that is, you can go to patreon.com/DizlessPod to check us out. You'll get early access to new episodes as well as bonus content. So really excited that we got to hang out with at least one patron last night.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And, we love all of our patrons, and it's always great when you guys see us and hit us up and just talk to us about the show and talk to us about your love of Disney. So, and reach out, by the way, on Instagram at DizListPod. We're always looking for interaction there as well. But we're going to check you out right after the halftime show. Welcome back. We're going to count down our top 2 now of moderate and value resorts. To recap, the first half of the show, we saw 2 moderates and a value.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people might have been shocked that Port Orleans was as low as it is.
Yeah, it's great.
But here's what I will say. I think when they hear 1 and 2, they'll understand.
Yeah.
And I'll throw out that Art of Animation having the Skyliner probably is what put that above
definitely
Port Orleans.
Yep.
No Skyliner, it's 4, Port Orleans is 3.
Yeah.
Skyliner, it's at 3.
Yeah.
But number 2.
Yeah, number 2 and number 1, I like both of them a lot.
This is a hard one.
It's a very hard one. So
I think
should we just say both and then discuss both, or what do you think?
Sure, we can do that. I'm going to tell you, for me, it's a coin flip between these 2.
It is. It's very close. Number 1 only wins because of the benefit that we talked about on the first half of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So this is very different for our show, but we're going to say what number 1 and number 2 are.
Okay.
And discuss the both of them and explain why. So if I know you agree with me on the list, but I think honestly you're right. You can flip a coin and one's going to win one time and one is going to win the other.
I think the way we rated them, 1 makes sense. Want to just rip the Band-Aid off?
So I've stayed at both of these. I love them both. It's hard for me to choose. Number 2 is Coronado Springs, and number 1 is Caribbean Beach.
Yep.
They're both great. Now, if I were to look at both, so Caribbean Beach, I'll give a quick overview for both, and then we'll get into the specifics. Caribbean Beach is a moderate. It has kind of that Caribbean vibe and feel. It's very tropical.
Huge resort.
Huge. But there's actually 2 places that you could get on the Skyliner. We'll get to that in a minute. The food is okay. The pool is okay. And then Coronado Springs I've also stayed at, and there's a lot of benefits there too. That one is also really big, but it has a little bit of a different shape. So my wife and I walked like the entire area, and it was a very long walk. But
around
the whole property.
Okay.
Starting at Destino Tower and then moving all the way around.
I can't wait to talk about that.
So we'll go to number 2.
Okay.
And we'll start there, and then we'll get back to number 1, but we'll explain why along the way here. So Coronado Springs has a giant lake. I wouldn't say giant, but for Disney, it's a small resort lake is very big.
Yes, it's not Seven Seas Lagoon, but it's big.
That's why I wanted to correct myself there, because it's not enormous. So Coronado Springs. One of the great things about Coronado Springs is that it has Destino Tower, which is a new, and that's very deluxe in there. It is beautiful. Then that's where you come in to check in. So when you enter, you check in, you're like, holy Toledo, this is gorgeous. Then they give you your room in one of the different neighborhoods around the outside, and the one that we requested through touring plans was one that was going to be close to the area where the dining was, and we could take the bus. We had a car though, but we rented a car that year. But they gave us the room that we wanted. It was right close to Destino Tower and where all the food was. Another interesting thing about Coronado Springs, and this can be a plus or a minus depending on how you look at it, is that they also have a convention center there. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the different groups and convention groups will come and stay there. Some people don't like that. Some people don't like the fact that there's these huge groups staying there in the area. We stayed when there were different groups there. Here's what I would say.
Yeah. There's a difference between these groups and the groups you get at the All-Stars.
Correct.
The groups you're getting here are business people, And as a result, you're reaping the rewards. Grand Destino Tower is ridiculously deluxe.
Yeah.
For a moderate. Yes. It is
beautiful.
As deluxe as many of the deluxe resorts, except for it's at a moderate resort.
Right.
And that's because the reason they have that there is because of the business people.
Yes.
The food is better because of the business people. Mm-hmm. The theming is more on the deluxe side. What I mean is subtle.
Yeah, there's not much Disney theming at all.
Well, so I mean, it's like
kind of a drawback a little bit.
It's got like that Salvador Dali.
Yeah, I was going to get to that too. I'm glad you brought that up. So the famous surrealist painter, Salvador Dali, he was sort of the inspiration for this tower, and a lot of his artwork is within the tower. Destino is actually, this is a cool fun fact. I don't know if listeners know this. The name Destino is from a cartoon that Walt Disney and Salvador Dali worked on together.
And they look like they could be brothers.
Well, their mustaches were a little different, but they're close.
Yeah.
But they did a cartoon together that was never finished when Walt was alive. And a number of years ago, relatively recently, I would say within like 10 years or so, they dug out all of the concepts and basic animation from that movie. And Salvador Dali is also since deceased as well. I think he died in the 80s or late 70s. And then they decided they were going to create the movie. So Destino, actually, you can go in and watch. And all their concepts from Walt and Salvador together, it is a Disney animated Salvador Dali painting come to life. Now, I'll get back to the hotel part, so I won't get off on it too much. But you can go and watch it. Like, you can find it anywhere. Mm-hmm. But there's so many things that are within that tower that are reminiscent of the cartoon that they did together. There's Salvador Dali. There's his portrait is kind of subtle on the side. Just the way that the exterior of the building looks is very fluid but very sharp, which is reminiscent of the style that Salvador Dali does. I teach art, so that's why I know a lot about this stuff. But it's so deluxe in there that it's just walking through, even though you're paying for a moderate resort, and we didn't pay a lot for it. You walk through there and you're like, wow, I am staying somewhere fancy. Even though our hotel is one of the ones where I call it kind of the motel entrance where you exit from the outside of the building.
Well, because it used to be, I mean, Grand Destino Tower, when that was built, it completely changed the atmosphere of that entire resort.
Definitely.
And for the better.
Yeah,
right?
It changed the game.
They made it more attractive for businesses to hold conferences there. Mm-hmm. Instead of, over on iDrive or somewhere at one of the conference centers in Orlando, go there and, treat your clients to a day or two at Disney.
Uh-huh. And the food.
The food is phenomenal there.
It is. And the theming is a little strange. I will say that, though.
Yeah, it's
odd. A combination of Mexican, Spanish, South American. It's sort of this mix of all of these different
all the places
cultures.
You might speak Spanish.
Yeah. It's a good way to put it.
It's a very odd. I agree with you.
It is strange. It's strange to take all of those unique and rich cultures and kind of put them into one bag.
It's that is odd.
It is a little bit odd. It's kind of like if you were to have a resort that had multiple Asian cultures. They're
different.
They're very different, and they're amazing, and they have all their own intricacies. And I would love just that. So sometimes when they do that, I don't love it because I think each culture should have its own individual voice,
representation. I agree.
So
I agree.
I mean, I'm okay with it. I don't get to choose though because I'm just the one staying there. But the food was great. They had Mexican food. I wish they had paella and more Spanish themed food because Salvador Dali is from Spain, but a lot of the resort is Mexican themed. So there's an example of how it's both Spanish and Mexican together. But the food was great. My son said at the time, he was young, he said, "This is the best burger I've ever had in my life." I mean, it's very good. I mean, I don't know if it's...
I got to bring him to Geyser Point.
Well, yeah, or bring him over to your place over here in town.
Yeah.
Anyway, he loved the food. The food was great. But we need to talk about why this is 2 And Caribbean Beach, which is not as nice of a
location.
resort,
it's got to be
is number one.
It's got to be location,
Yes.
location,
And
location, and
location,
transportation.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about why
Yeah.
Caribbean Beach is number one on our list?
Caribbean Beach is number one on our list for the same reason Art of Animation is 3.
Yeah.
And that is that the Skyliner changes the game.
It does. And that's why it's one.
Let me put it this way. Monorail resorts are cool because you're a monorail ride from Magic Kingdom.
And you don't have to worry about the buses as much.
Right. When you're on a Skyliner resort like Caribbean Beach, you are a ride away from 2 parks. In many ways, that's why I think the Skyliner is actually superior to the monorail. Now, I know if it's lightning out, if it's windy out, I understand it shuts down.
Yeah.
However, at 7 o'clock in the morning, when you want to get to the park,
you hop right on.
Yeah. You do not wait with 150 of your closest friends at the TTC.
Yeah.
You do not wait to go through security at Grand Floridian, at the Contemporary, at the Poly, so you can board the monorail.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, what you do is you walk through security there, and you get on your own cart, usually in the morning.
Yeah, and I've been in there with other people before.
Right, it's not a big deal, but it is quick. It's an omni-mover of a transportation system.
Yeah, it's great.
There's no wait.
And there is sometimes, but it goes very fast.
What I mean is there's no wait for the next car.
Oh, correct. Yes.
Yeah. And Caribbean Beach has not 1, but 2 stops.
Mm-hmm.
It's, plus, get this, it is, maybe you don't like the food at Caribbean Beach, which, by the way, it does have some good food.
Yeah. Sebastian's Bistro, their quick service food there is fantastic too. You can get tacos.
Sebastian's is like highly, highly rated.
Yes.
But like
those are the 2 main places.
Being on the Skyliner, mm-hmm. You're right. Oh, you're not that far away from Epcot. You're not that far away from what I think is the best restaurant on property, which is Topolino's.
Oh, that's true too.
Because you're right next door.
Yeah.
And to Riviera.
Now we walked over there, and I don't know what the protocol is, because if you are staying,
you can walk over there.
There's 2 different places at Caribbean Beach where you can get on the Skyliner. You can get on the north side, which is right next to the Riviera Resort.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you are staying at the Riviera or you're staying at Caribbean Beach. You can walk up and use that. And there's paths that connect.
You take a right. I think it's when you get off, you take a right, you're going to Caribbean Beach.
Correct.
Take a left, you're going to.
And if you're on the south side of the resort, there's another place where you can get on the Skyliner, because this particular resort is very large, as you said before,
mm-hmm.
but it is very much, it's like the resort is very long. It's not a round one like Coronado Springs is like a big loop.
Yep.
This one is like I don't know.
It's just a long, along almost like one street, or like a neighborhood that's only on a street. I'll say this too, that when you're on the Skyliner, and I know I keep going back to Skyliner, but when you're on the Skyliner, you don't just have your own resort. You have all the Skyliner resorts to eat at. You get the benefit of the boardwalk area without having to maybe deal with boardwalk noise, because some people don't like the boardwalk. That's kind of why it didn't reach our top 5.
Yeah.
Is a lot of people will complain about the boardwalk noise. For me, I don't think that's a big issue, but my wife has zero interest of staying on the boardwalk side, because she's like, it's too loud at night. I'm like, whatever. But either way, so you have the benefits of the boardwalk, all the food that's there. You have the benefits of Beach Club, all the food that's there. You have the benefit of Riviera, all the food that's there. You can go over to Art of Animation, the food there. You can go to Hollywood Studios if you really want to eat any of the crappy food in that park, because it's an awful food park. Or you can go to Epcot. Like, it's ridiculous.
And you're not...
For a moderate resort. This is a moderate resort.
It's fantastic. And if you had a car and you were driving, you would have to check in and you'd have to say, well, I have a reservation here, but not if you have this benefit. So I want to quickly go through the dining. I actually went in to find the name of what the food court is.
Yeah.
It's called Centertown Market.
Yes.
And that's one of my favorite we'll say, food court restaurants inside. And I just want to look up a couple things. You have burgers.
Yep.
You have a roasted half chicken. You have Cuban sandwich.
Yes.
You have pulled pork, turkey sandwich, chicken bowl, which is, jerk chicken, fish tacos. And then there's one that somebody said, hey, here's the secret restaurant that you can get, or that you can...
Secret menu.
No, there's a restaurant that a lot of people don't know of. It's way down at the south end, and it's called Spyglass. It is tiny. It's like the size of... Gosh, it's like the size of my classroom. It's very small. And you can go down there and get tacos. And we walked down there just to check it out. Somebody said, you got to go to Spyglass. It is like this secret thing that people don't know about, and you can get these amazing tacos. We went down there. They were incredible. Everybody loved it. I mean, it was kind of a far walk, but it was great because we were staying right over by the pool and by the Skyliner, and it was something to do at night. We walked it as a family and had these amazing tacos and kind of walked back. It was dark out, and we got to see what the resort looked like with all the lights on. It was so cool, and it was just a really great experience.
Did you eat at Sebastian's?
No, we didn't.
I've heard nothing but amazing things about. I have not eaten there.
But you know us. We just want a quick thing and go. And
I've heard amazing things about Sebastian's.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious if listeners if you've tried Spyglass and you know that this is like the secret hideaway, that let us know if you've stayed or if you've tried food there and if you liked it or not.
Look, I can't say enough about, I think that resort is one of the best themed because
definitely.
It looks like you're in a Caribbean village.
It's very tropical.
Which is why I also don't like the Riviera.
Sure.
Because the Riviera, you're supposed to be in the Mediterranean.
Is it specifically France, or is it another amalgamation of
It's kind of another amalgamation.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's we'll just call it the Mediterranean. So French, but not French.
Any French Canadian in there?
No, it's not that kind of amalgamation.
Okay. Oh.
That would be odd.
Well,
for sure, eh? So
Nick is from the northern part of New York, very, very close to Montreal.
Yes. So I would say this, that what ruins Riviera for me is looking out from this Mediterranean resort and seeing all these buildings that are very clearly Caribbean themed, because it is that pink, that like
that light blue, the yellow.
I keep thinking of like beautiful. Miami Vice.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
That's cool. That's fine.
It's
pool. I didn't talk about the pool. The pool's okay. The pool's funny. It looks like a set from Star Wars. Have you seen it before?
Yes,
Doesn't it?
I guess
it looks like a Star Wars pool.
Yeah.
It has kind of that look of Tatooine or one of those.
Explain what you mean.
One of those small towns. Yeah. So everything all around the outside has kind of that sandy color.
Yep.
And then the buildings in the back are kind of cylinder shaped with like a rounded cap on top, which looks like the buildings from Star Wars.
Yeah.
I've always thought that. Do you agree?
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Because when you said Star Wars, I was like, yep.
Yeah.
And like, because I couldn't. Like, I knew what you're talking about, but as soon as you said Star Wars, like, I mean, it's Tatooine.
Yeah.
It's got that rounded, domed shape. Yeah. It's very odd.
But if I were to compare the two and you say coin flip, you look at the deluxe accommodations. Well,
it's quieter. So here's what I would say.
Yeah, sure.
It's quieter at Coronado.
Yes.
It's more, you're in it.
Yeah.
Caribbean Beach.
Caribbean Beach is more of a party, I feel.
Yes, so that's I think it feels very much like the Caribbean, and so
kids love it.
I would say
colors.
The reason it's a coin toss for me is because it depends on which kind of vacation I'm going for. I think if I'm going for a quiet, maybe not as park heavy stay, Coronado Springs would be it.
Yep.
If I'm going for something with kids that it's like you want to be in the middle of everything, Caribbean Beach is it.
I think you led me to my final point here. And my final point is really this: regardless of the numbers that we gave everything, I think one thing that kind of came out within making this list is which resorts here are appropriate for which age group. So if we're starting with the younger kids, you're looking at All-Star Sports. You are looking at Art of Animation because it has the large Disney characters all over the place for the younger group. I think you said through what age did you say?
Like 3 through 8.
Sure. Then I would say the next one to go to from there would probably be Caribbean Beach for the next age group, because it's bright colors. The Sebastian's Bistro is themed around The Little Mermaid, so there's a little bit of Disney theming there. It's bright, it's bold, it's colorful.
You're close to multiple parks.
They get a little bit older, and their teenage, and this, I brought my teens to Coronado Springs. They really liked it. There's sand around the outside of the lake, and like volleyball, and they were playing in the hammocks. They had a great time.
Yep.
They went outside and just played Uno by the water.
Right.
So that's great for teens. Port Orleans was really good for teens also. We had Fort Wilderness. I think that could be literally any age. I wouldn't put that with any group.
No, that's like a multi-generational stay kind of thing. Yep.
But looking at this list, obviously I didn't say Pop Century either, because it's not one that's my favorite. But I think overall, with younger kids, and if you're on a budget, you really can't go wrong. And even with Pop Century, whose theming I don't like personally, there's so many benefits there too, like having the Skyliner. They have a giant pool there. I don't really think you can go wrong. Even the All-Stars, which people make fun of all the time, the rooms aren't very big, but their food courts are not bad. There's Disney theming everywhere.
My issue with the All-Stars,
sure,
if I want to stay in that room, I'm going to stay off property in that room and save $200 a night.
There's one more thing too. And the other is it's very far away.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at location,
there are closer places off property.
There is.
That's
it's crazy to think about, but absolutely true, because it is down near the Animal Kingdom area.
Yeah.
It's one of the further away resorts too. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed our list. Again, these are ones that I've spent a lot of time at. So if you have any questions for us and you want to say, what about this, what about that, I'm happy to answer them. Nick is the pro when it comes to social media. He's on it all the time. So if there's a question specifically for me, he'll let me know, and I will go in and answer it for you.
Or I'll pretend.
Well, and you may know it too.
Yeah.
You may know the answer.
Yeah, I mean,
even though I've stayed there, you know a lot about, just like me. Like a lot of the resorts you've stayed at, I know a lot about just because I've visited or I just know Disney.
I think that's what makes the show fun is that, like, last week was resorts I'm very familiar with. This week, you're more familiar with these.
Yeah. I love them all.
In the end,
Almost.
I think what we saw was that there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
And there's something for every price point for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Disney gets a bad rap about how expensive stuff is, but the reality is, if you shop around, if you use a travel agent, you will likely find a deal that you can afford, and you can still enjoy Disney on a budget and not sacrifice by staying 45 minutes away from Disney.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this was fun. These last 2 weeks were a lot of fun discussing this stuff. Again, check out patreon.com/DizlessPod. Follow us at DizlessPod pretty much everywhere. But it's been a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow's just a list away.
Tune in next time, and we'll see you real soon.